program.
Yeah,
I have the article right here
yeah, you
ready.
have the article.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Arguments in Logic. I am Robert Sykes, and with me is.
The artist formerly known as Patrick Frazier, but I'm gonna go by Frazier. I'm gonna do a share. Uh,
I think that's a
Frazier.
solid move.
Yeah, it's solid.
Solid move.
I'm calling it episode pi, just so the viewers know.
Oh,
3.14
yeah.
with
Yeah.
dot dot
So
dot.
we'll have to do one that's 14 seconds long and
Right.
then
Yeah,
stop.
and stuff. But
Or would it make more sense to make it 3 minutes and 14 seconds?
that's true. But I think we actually forgot to do something. This is where we put the
Critic and critical thinking, everybody.
yes.
It's more
Which
just critic, but I think there's more critic than critical thinking in this podcast, but whatever. We do what we want. I mean, we got up to like at least 23 people watched this terrible video last time, so I mean,
yeah.
we're just absolutely crushing it in
Well,
the online podcast.
for people who only do a podcast every 2 weeks, we're crushing it. If we keep it up at this rate, I swear, in a 10, 20 years, we could literally make hundreds of dollars, people. Hundreds.
Or tens of dollars, definitely.
10, yeah.
Tens,
Well, when you
tens of
factor in
dollars.
inflation, the hundreds will be tens of,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It might be hundreds of dollars. That's only worth tens of dollars.
I, I did want to quickly just make a, maybe not a retraction per se, but something like that. I just felt a little bit guilty about,
Clarification.
yeah, clarification.
Clarification.
Uh, yes, don't get an education. I think there are some people that might walk away with that. Trade schools are good, but if trade schools are good, I think one institution that you might want to endorse or give some love to are local community colleges. And that's just because, yeah, they're not perfect either. A lot of this kind of Orwellian kind of doublespeak that you think of in education and frankly in corporate America goes on at community colleges, believe me. But if you do want your kid to go to a trade school or you want to go to a trade school, there's some options. If there's a sectorial union in your area, like the electricians union or iron workers, but in most cases, it's going to be a lot cheaper, a lot more affordable, and probably a lot more equitable. And you're going to get more bang for your dollar and probably find a job if you go to the community college and do one of their associate's degrees or some kind of program. It's not going to be transferable to a university to get a degree, but that's not the point. And that's where you will find most of those opportunities across this country or at community colleges. Speaking of which, in
Well,
theory,
we're not college counselors or anything,
we're
so we
not.
don't know what transfers and what doesn't.
This is
So
true.
some degree
Generally,
may or may not. It
you
depends
may
on
or
where
may
you
not.
live, I think. So I think the
Mr.
biggest
Lawyer.
thing about this, I want to touch on this just a little bit. The biggest thing about this community college degree is why would you ever go to a 4-year university to start with if you didn't have a scholarship is beyond me. You can
Right.
do 2 years for it's a lot less cost. Universities are very expensive these days, so I mean, for my money, I went to a community college. Oh, that's not saying very much though. Both Patrick and I went to
Oh,
community colleges, so I guess yeah, go to the university. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, you had a story about some kind of nonsense in up there in Washoe County School District.
yeah, just so everybody knows. But yeah, in theory, we talked about not watching the news, and I've got out my local newspaper. I've kind of ignored all the Trump stories, but I was looking for something about my community, and I found this new policy about cell phones. Uh, and it just sounds like it's more bureaucratic doublespeak. It just sounds like it's totally unenforceable, and it's you
Well,
know
what's the tagline in this? What's the idea behind this cell phone policy that they have? Or
um,
isn't it a pilot program?
yeah,
I have the article right here
Yeah,
ready
you have
here.
the
Let me
article.
let me pull up the article. So, the headline of the article is brought to you by the wonderful Reno Gazette Journal, who we are not affiliated with, nor
Well,
do they
no,
sponsor us in any way. But
no.
they are a local newspaper, and they do report news. So the headline is Washoe County School District moves forward with plan to end cell phone use during class time, which I mean, I think that sounds like something, but if you read the article, it says that it's not a ban, and what it really is tech education and a management plan. And according to this article, under the plan, students will check their cell phones to teachers when they go into a class. Um,
Which is already something that goes on at a lot of the schools anyway. So it really just depends on what the policy is with the admin at a particular school. So it was sort of a non-story, and and I
that's
love.
what I got out of the article, but I really think that students need their cell phones in class. I mean, how are you gonna like Snap or Twitter or whatever X or whatever
Nobody
it
uses
is
X. There's no
you.
kid on
Like,
X.
I think
Trust me.
there's a new one out too, isn't there? I mean, I'm old. I don't know any of this crap. Like, I know Snap is still a thing because some people still use it, but I think Gen Alpha is using some new one called, I don't know. Who knows what the hell the name of it is these days? If anybody out there that watches this is Gen Alpha, like put it in the comments for us. Let us know what you guys are using out there, or don't. Either way, I'm just curious. But I mean, how are you going to be engaged socially with the rest of the world, without your phone?
And you need the camera actually to put on your makeup in class. Well, the teacher is talking about the quadratic formula. So,
That's a solid point. And there's things in it like Google Maps. Like, how are you going to find your next class if you don't have Google Maps? I mean, clearly you're going to be lost. So, I mean, I think this is a terrible travesty of justice proposed by the Orwellian state district.
well, wait, I would just like to say for the record that I love Washington School District. They've done a really good job making sure that the kids have access to premier technology, some cases Chromebooks, some cases Windows machines of one variety or another, and iPads. So
Can
there's
you give me
always.
your Snap account or your whatever the newfangled one is on those? I would bet you they're blocking it.
No, they're blocked. They are blocked. I
Yeah,
mess.
so they don't care about my likes when I'm coming to school or how many hits or whatever I'm trying to get out of the day.
Well, well, that's my
They
point.
want me to
Is
learn with technology. Who wants to learn with technology? That sounds stupid.
see, my point is not to hate on wonderful. I love. They're good people, but the Reno Gazette Journal, which I am not employed by in any way, shape, or form, I don't think it's a great paper, and I don't think it's because the wonderful reporters that write for that paper who would like to do and write good stories, I'm sure, but the soulless company Gannett that owns them, I think, has no interest in doing real investigative journalism or really giving you stories on understanding what's happening with the city council or any reason why I would want to do the thing that people will say all the time. Read your local paper. Don't care. Don't worry about cable news and what's going on in Ukraine. Find out what's happening locally and it's mostly the same kind of garbage that you would get from cable news. So I don't even know what
I
the
think
point
that
is.
is a yeah, I mean that's definitely a good point. And full disclosure, I did work at the Reno Gazette Journal 20 years ago, but I am no longer affiliated with them. Um, just wanted to let the audience know that in case it comes out. Um, but I mean, I mean, honestly, even 20 years ago when I worked there, it was the same kind of there was the same kind of trashy news. Most of the stories are they come across the AP wire, anything with any substance, and they're just regurgitated and rewritten in some form or fashion. I mean, is investigative journalism even a thing anymore? Except for going after like the auto repair shop that screwed over Susie for your special, right? Like around here we have like Sacramento Cares or something like KCRA Cares or something. You need like if a local business like screws you over, you can email him and he'll go check out why they are not giving you your refund or whatever, if he deems it worthy. So I mean, is there really any investigative journalism that goes on anymore?
I want to say that yes, particularly at bigger newspapers and news organizations, but a lot of times it's there's an incentive there. They're capitalist entities, and even when they're not, something like NPR or PBS still responds to its donor base, and whether they want to admit it or not, the companies that donate to them. And so when there's an incentive structure to do that kind of reporting, they do it. But Reno Gazette Journal back when you were there was owned by Gannett too, even that long ago. And there's just not much of an incentive to do those kind of stories. And I don't know what the answer is because when you learn about say economics and you learn about the idea of going back even to Adam Smith, he even way before Mr. Karl Marx talked about the idea that there are certain things that the government has to do, like building bridges and things where there's just not a market incentive to do it. You're not going to make money doing this, building parks, that kind of thing. And you could make those arguments about healthcare and a lot of education. But when it comes to the news and the idea of having like a fourth estate, like in France or the Watchers, it's like who watches the Watchers?
Mhm.
In theory, that should be the media. So you really don't want that run by the government. And when the private sector does it, it sort of doesn't do a very good job of it either because, just like we have separation of church and state, we really need separation of business and state. And I think that's the problem is how do you do it? I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of the problem is how, I mean, you have to earn revenue, right? So private organizations have to earn revenue. These aren't non-profit organizations. They
right.
have to pay people. It's expensive to produce these things. How do you do that? And so I've heard rumors that, most of these news organizations are beholden to their advertisers. If a big enough advertiser tells them that they don't have any interest in a story, they suddenly don't have any interest in a story. And and I'm not like I would do the same thing. I don't know how you wouldn't if you were a for profit, you're trying to make a profit, you have people that you need to pay. You need to get people to read the newspaper. I mean, this has been a long-standing thing, right? If it bleeds, it leads. That
Yeah,
goes back forever.
yeah, exactly. And then potentially the solution for some time has been like saying that what's the Washington Post, I think. There's two papers there, but I think the one Jeff Bezos owns, who used to be the CEO of Amazon, is the Washington Post, I believe. They just before the election pulled back their endorsement of Kamala Harris, and the rumor was that Jeff Bezos was told by Trump or someone in the administration in the same or in the campaign, and same thing with the LA Times. I don't know who the famous rich person is there, but some rich guy, very very rich person owns it, and they were both told, "Hey, why don't you pull back these endorsements so you don't look bad when the new president is in office?" And in Bezos' case, the conjecture was that, he has Blue Origin and all kinds of fun projects that billionaires want to do. And he didn't want to run into any kind of bureaucratic friction. So he said, yeah, let's pull back on that. But the idea had been for a while that, oh, when some eccentric billionaire owns the paper, especially someone like Bezos, who's like the second or third richest person in the world, depending on how you count the beings,
Yeah.
he can afford to just go, yeah, whatever. But no, he can't afford to go, whatever, because he still has to deal with the government, and he was scared, and he pulled it back. And he's, supposedly a kind of a slightly left of center kind of guy, and he was like, nope, not going to do it. Let's just pull it back. So, it's hard to look at a story like that and not feel a little bit demoralized about the fate of news. And we need news. We need Fox News. We need CNN. We need all kinds of different news organizations. And they shouldn't be beholden to corporations or the government. Shouldn't is a big word.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I need a tinfoil hat here as a prop because I'm gonna put on my tinfoil hat now, and yeah, just, I mean, at what point? So we are capitalists, and the capitalist needs are gonna drive these organizations, and so they're gonna protect whatever whatever is the capitalist agenda, so consume more. This is why advertisers are there, and make sure that the status quo is upheld and that we continue to drive profits and increase revenue, and do it by selling a whole bunch of cheap stuff from China made by children.
Precisely. And speaking of
And I
media,
don't think that the newspapers are any different than anyone else. And I
not
think
as
that,
an well, it's like Tocqueville, some French philosopher in the 19th century, visited the United States, and he has a lot of famous quotes from when he wrote about America. And one of them was about democracy, that you get the democracy you deserve. And
mm.
I think you get the news you deserve. And so, just like with the election, also with these terrible
And that's
papers.
the key. That's the absolute key, right? That's the issue. Is because more people care about the Kardashians or whatever stupid ass reality shows out there. Not that there's anything wrong with the reality shows. If you like reality shows, I'm okay with that. But
I'm not
all
okay
those
with that. I'm not.
all those kind of trashy just bullshit that is the most popular thing. You know, it's just it's just the way it is. It's like we are anest
Yes.
anesthetized.
Yeah, say that 3 times fast. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I got that right,
Good enough.
but close enough. You know what I
Yes.
mean. So we have to have our medicine, and it's like any number of dystopian like takes on the world, right? Like whether it's 1984 or Brave New World, or any of those. We're just constantly we're soothing ourselves consistently, and anything that's real news or like that's really important doesn't get the views, doesn't get the likes, doesn't get the retweets, and so there's no incentive. Nobody wants to pay attention.
Exactly. And while we're talking about media criticism, because we put the critic in critical thinking, I heard, uh,
Yeah, or criticism even. We put the
or
critic in
critics,
criticism.
we do. I'm going to get these two clickbait headlines out of the way just right quick. Smiling, the world's most overrated mood booster. So the next time someone tells you to smile, you can confidently reply, "Why bother? It won't make a difference anyway." And the
Oh,
other
you
one,
really like that story.
I
That's
love
what
that
I do.
story.
That's
Well, I love that story. You can tell I'm smiling, but the thing is, a smile is a natural thing. There's a study, I say study, that was conducted a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away. I don't know. Sometime it was done. And they had people put clothespins on their lips, and they said, "Oh, we're happy." Research turns out that when you do this, people are happy. And when I worked in the public
was that to
sector,
force them into a fake smile? Was that the deal, or
it
what
made
was
them
the
happy. That's what the research said. And so when I worked for
what? It
different,
like closed them like I don't understand. I'm confused
it
as to
just
what
made
the
them
story.
happy. And so I would see people at a bank that
I'm
rhymes
gonna
with
have to
belt.
post them on my lips. I don't know how they were happy. That's
When I
crazy.
worked at a bank that rhymes with Bell's Fargo, we had meetings where the supervisor would say, they would quote this study and say, it makes you happy. I've seen teachers quote this study to kids. And I told the teacher, that study was never duplicated. And it's actually a bullshit study. The teacher said, well, this is why nobody likes you, Patrick. This is why.
Yeah,
And I said, my name's Fraser.
clearly.
Yeah. So, but that's a thing.
Well,
And
did you know that 9 out of 10 doctors use scope? So, you know,
use
there's
scope.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the quote that 90% of statistics is made up? But I think 90% of, well, 90%, let's just say 90% of statistics is meaningless. It's like, okay, even if that were true, they use scope. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the deal, right? Is there's this disconnect between like what is relevant, and so that's the whole point of this kind of you know podcast that we do is that there isn't a lot of. It seems like we've lost this ability to like ingest information, think about it, and then do our own research to validate it in the world in general, right? Which is what critical thinking is, right? Critical thinking is that whole idea that I'm constantly bombarded by information. What information matters and what information is actually accurate, and this is why you see all these fake, you know, stupid Facebook, stories out there, like the one with the picture of the two oceans coming together and they're separated, and it's just crazy, crazy shit out there
You
that
know,
you'll see.
that's a story on
And
Facebook, you said?
it was, yeah, years ago. It was like this separate. There, I forget what the. It was so dumb that I've already forgotten what it was about. But
As someone who's probably going to get a B in geology from UNLV, I can tell you that's not how plate tectonics work, bro. That's not how they work.
yeah, the two they don't mix together or some shit, something stupid. Someone else can find it, I'm sure. Out
That's
there of our 23 listeners, I'm sure they're smart people and know what I'm talking about.
Meta also doesn't sponsor us, and whenever I want to feel happy, just like Christmas and Thanksgiving and all the holidays and Facebook and X, formerly Twitter, I just think of Facebook and the fact that I'm not on it anymore, and I feel this instant joy just fill through me. That's how I become happy. It's not by doing a fake smile. It's just remembering that I'm not on social media anymore.
And maybe that's part of what this stupid ass, I mean, sorry, this um, poorly written pilot program by school district is trying to do, is trying to help children learn to disconnect, you know, 1 hour at a time. Could
You
that
know,
be it?
well, on a serious note, yeah. Uh, People don't. I mean, speaking of geology, right? My beef is that social change happens a lot quicker than, say, tectonic forces, but they don't
Hmm.
happen as quickly as people want them to. And that's the frustration with, say, democracies, with how something like inflation works. And never mind, in order to actually explain what inflation is, as opposed to high prices, it requires explaining calculus and acceleration, since a lot of economics comes from physics. But anyway, nobody wants to be lectured. But I did want to get another clickbait article out of the way
Okay, moving
because
on.
what's up?
Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
Clickbait article next.
Well, it
We have
ultimately,
6 minutes
as
left, Patrick, just so you know.
we have 10 minutes left.
6 minutes.
6 minutes. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, this is the
Keep it
weave
moving.
that Trump talks
Yep.
about. So it brings anyway. A coin to flip for your child's future. Next time your child eats a marshmallow, before they can finish their homework, don't worry. They still have a 50% chance of failing at life.
This is That is such a good clickbait headline. Um, yeah, don't eat marshmallows because you'll fail at life. That's clearly what that's saying. You know, it's and you had brought this study to my attention, and I had never heard of this study before. And you can explain what the study was and what they did in this study for marshmallows.
Well, once upon a time ago, the researchers brought some kids together, and this study was done over a period of like 10, 20 years so they could track the kids. They put some marshmallows in front of them, and the researchers said, if you don't eat the marshmallow, and I'm going to go away and I'm going to come back in 15 minutes, if you're a good little kid, I'll reward you with a second marshmallow. It turns out that the kids who didn't eat the marshmallow and waited for the second marshmallow had wonderful lives. They went on to graduate college, had wonderful careers, had beautiful families. There was no drama. Their lives were great. They never had contact with the criminal justice system. Life was hunky dory. Not the case for the kids who ate the marshmallow. So delayed gratification was supposedly the big bugaboo in this. And if you have the fortitude to resist eating a marshmallow, you're going to do well in life. But if you don't, then life's going to be terrible. And I've seen, again, banks and schools quote this study, and it is also a study that has been refuted. It wasn't when researchers came back and looked at it. It wasn't a matter of repeating it because it was tracking these kids over 20 years. That's going to be really hard to duplicate. But they looked at it mathematically, and what they didn't include was household income, and that's a whole different story, and it's a
Oh,
somewhat spurious connection too. But household income, whether we like it or not, is intricately, say that three times
mhm.
fast, tied to lifetime earnings, educational outcomes, etc. And a lot of that, I
Yeah.
think, boils down to how much time the parents have to spend with their kids. So time's another variable. But that being the case, it's also just the fact that scientists have their own media, and peer-reviewed journals often don't go to the trouble of doing retractions and say, oh yeah, it turns out this isn't true. And then the media itself doesn't, certainly the regular media that you and I consume definitely doesn't do that, let alone the scientific journals. So
Well, and we as individuals, I don't know how many people have quoted studies to me that they've never read, you know. So, you know, I mean, it's which is fine. Who wants to read them? I mean, I personally, if it's interesting or something that I'm going to go spout to other people, I typically at least read the abstract, if not the data involved. I try to read the whole one. Some of them are really dense. They're really difficult to read, but I think that's the whole deal, right? Is that we fundamentally don't understand how scientific method works as a whole. The average person doesn't, and two, we don't go and actually do the research on our own. We just take these pared down synopsis of what the study was, because you see it all the time in the news, right? Scientists say that water is bad for you or whatever
yeah, it's
it
terrible.
is. And so unless you actually go and look at what they were studying, the sample size, you really, what have you really done? I mean, I don't know how many times somebody's quoted a study for me, and I'm like, what's the sample size? They don't know. And then I look at the sample size, and it's like 100 people. I mean, it's a non-study with 100 people. It's just some college graduate student writing a paper is all it is at that
Well,
point.
speaking of numbers that are gradually getting bigger, while once again we might not have accomplished much, for those 23 plus people out there, now is your opportunity to not only like and subscribe, but now is your opportunity to suggest stories in the comments field of what we should discuss on episode 4, which will just be a regular 4. It'll be a normal, healthy integer. But on episode
Mhm.
4, what should we discuss? I challenge you to put it in the comments.
I really liked the marshmallow story too. It's interesting because it really goes into impulse control, right? And so it would be interesting to take that similar one and do another study with people that have the same income levels and break them out right? So that they have the same family income and then follow them and see where they end up. Because I do think that there is something, I mean, there's a lot of research behind impulse control and drug addiction, right? So it would just be interesting to see where they end up. Maybe they're really good. Maybe they're all like stuntmen or some shit, like or do like really cool extreme sports because that's pretty impulsive if you ask me. Maybe it's not.
Well,
I don't know, but yeah,
if you control for household income, the kids who eat the marshmallow might be more likely to be CEOs too, or
true.
something, or like you said, athletes or fighter pilots. They go to Annapolis and become fighter pilots. For the Navy, like Tom Cruise. But,
That's
Maverick,
Tom
not
Cruise.
Tom Cruise. But anyway,
Tom Cruise or Maverick.
well, Tom Cruise and Maverick are two different people, or are they?
I don't think they are. I mean,
No,
he's always going to be Maverick to me.
that's true. Well, once again, we have
Anyway,
accomplished nothing.
we have accomplished nothing, and please give us some topics to talk about. That would be cool. I mean, one comment would be awesome.
It
I mean, I
would.
think we might we might pop a bottle of sparkling cider over
We
there,
might. Yes.
Martinelli's. Well, thanks everyone for watching. If you made it this far, have a great day. Nailed it. All
Bye.
right, here we go.